You ever notice how sometimes the hardest prison to escape doesn't have any bars? It's not made of concrete or steel, it's built inside your own mind. You walk around smiling, laughing, pretending you're free, but deep down you know you're not. Because even when the door is open, if your mind still believes you're trapped, you'll never step out. You can have all the talent in the world, all the opportunities lined up, but if your thinking is still chained to what hurt you, what failed you, what disappointed you, you'll keep living in a cage you built for yourself. See, nobody has to tell you you're not enough anymore. You've said it to yourself so many times that it's become the background music of your life. Every time something goes wrong, that old voice comes back, whispering, "You'll never make it. You always mess things up." You've replayed it so often that it's become truth in your mind, even when it's a lie. You've got to recognize that the enemy doesn't need to take your money, your friends, or your job. If he can take your mind, he already has your future. Because as long as he can convince you that you're powerless, you'll never use the power you already have. There are people right now who are physically free but mentally imprisoned. Walking in circles, repeating the same mistakes, drawn to the same kind of pain, because their mind is programmed to go where their trauma leads them. You can't live in freedom with a captive mindset. You can't walk into promise while still rehearsing your pain. Freedom isn't when the door opens. Freedom begins when you stop believing the lie that you deserve to stay where you are. Think about it. You were never meant to be defined by what broke you, but too many people have turned their pain into identity. You've worn that heartbreak so long, you think it's who you are. You've worn that rejection so long, you think it's your reflection. But pain was meant to teach you, not label you. The moment you let go of what was and decide that your mind won't be the burial ground of your destiny, something inside you starts to wake up. Because the greatest transformation doesn't happen when your situation changes. It happens when your perception shifts. The truth is, your life will always move in the direction of your dominant thoughts. You think small, you live small. You think defeated, you walk defeated. You think broken, you'll start settling for things that match your brokenness. But when you start thinking healed, thinking worthy, thinking possible, you begin to see doors that were always there, but you were too blind to believe in. Your world expands to the size of your belief. You can't fix what's around you until you fix what's within you. Too many of us are trying to change the fruit without dealing with the root. You're cutting off the branches, trying to look better, feel better, do better, but the same old thinking keeps growing it back. If you don't uproot the lie, the cycle will continue. And the dangerous thing about cycles is, after a while, they start to feel normal. You start to think, maybe this is just how life is. No, it's not how life is. It's how your mind learned to be. But what was learned can be unlearned. What was programmed can be rewritten. That's why some of you need to stop blaming your environment and start confronting your inner world. You can move to a new city, but the same mindset will unpack your bags. You can start a new relationship, but the same insecurities will move in with you. Until your mind shifts, your scenery won't matter. Because no matter where you go, your mind goes too. It's not about changing the view, it's about changing the vision. And that takes courage, because the mind will always cling to what's familiar, even when familiar is painful. You've been stuck so long that freedom feels strange, but you can't heal in the same place you were hurt. You can't grow thinking the same way that broke you. It's time to confront the thoughts that have been holding you hostage. It's time to speak to the doubt, to the fear, to that inner voice that keeps saying, "You'll never be more than this," and tell it, "You don't get to control me anymore." Because the moment you change your mind, the prison starts to crumble. The moment you decide, I don't have to stay in this space of limitation, I don't have to keep thinking I'm not enough, something begins to shift. You start walking differently. You start talking differently. You start expecting differently. People around you might not understand it. They'll say you've changed, and that's okay, because that's exactly what you were supposed to do. You've been waiting on the world to open a door, but maybe the real door is inside you. Maybe the key has always been in your hand, but fear convinced you it didn't fit. What would happen if you stopped living as a prisoner of your past and started living as the architect of your future? What would happen if you stopped seeing yourself through the eyes of pain and started seeing yourself through the lens of purpose? So I'm asking you right now, what's the thought that's been keeping you locked up? What lie have you been believing? What story have you been replaying so much that it's become your reality? It's time to challenge it. It's time to tear it down, because you can't build a new life on old lies. You can't create a new chapter while reading the same page. There comes a moment in every person's life when emotion is no longer enough. You can cry about it. You can feel sorry for yourself. You can talk about how unfair it is. But until you decide, truly decide, nothing will move. Emotion reacts, but decision redirects. You can't just wish for change. You've got to asterisk it. You've got to reach a point where you're not negotiating with your pain anymore. You're not asking your past for permission to move forward. You just make up your mind and say, that's it, I'm not going back. Because that moment of decision is where transformation begins. Most people live their entire lives ruled by how they feel. If they feel motivated, they move. If they don't, they quit. But those who rise, those who evolve, those who break generational patterns, they don't wait to feel ready. They decide to move even when it hurts, because a changed life is not built on feelings, it's built on choices. Feelings are temporary, decision is permanent. Feelings are like the wind, they shift, they fade, but a decision becomes your foundation. You ever notice how some people talk about what they want for years, but nothing ever changes? I'm gonna get in shape. I'm gonna start that business. I'm gonna forgive them. I'm gonna leave that toxic situation. But 5 years later, they're still saying gonna. Because they're stuck between desire and decision. They want it, but they haven't chosen it. You can't walk into destiny with undecided feet. You've got to draw the line and say, I may not know how it's going to happen, but I've made up my mind that it will. See, there's something powerful that happens when your mind locks in. When you say, I'm done living beneath my calling. I'm done letting fear make my decisions for me. That's when the universe, faith, and purpose start aligning in your favor. Because when your mind shifts, your moves shift. You stop waiting for the perfect moment and start creating it. You stop letting excuses talk louder than your purpose. You stop asking for clarity and start walking in conviction. Let me tell you something, you'll never have perfect conditions. If you're waiting for everything to line up, you'll be waiting forever. Every destiny-driven person had to start before they were ready. Every great leap required a little fear. But you know what separates the ones who move from the ones who don't. Decision, not the absence of fear, but the presence of focus. You can feel afraid and still move forward. You can feel uncertain and still take the step. Because courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the decision that something else matters more. When you decide, truly decide, everything in you begins to shift. Your thoughts align, your habits follow, your circle changes. You stop entertaining what drains you. You stop investing in what doesn't grow you. Decision gives you direction. It clears the noise. It silences the confusion, because you can't live free while you're still tied to indecision. The enemy loves confusion because confused people stand still. But when you decide, you take back control. You take your life off pause. And let's be real, it's not easy. The moment you decide to grow, life will test you. Old patterns will try to pull you back. Old temptations will resurface. The people who benefited from your weakness will question your strength. But don't let that scare you. Resistance is confirmation that you've changed direction. When you start moving differently, everything attached to your old version will start shaking. Let it. Growth requires disruption. You can't become new and keep everything old. The power of decision is that it forces everything around you to adjust. When you decide you're no longer settling, people will either rise with you or fall away from you. When you decide to heal, your mind will start protecting its peace. When you decide to win, your energy will start rejecting anything that looks like defeat. Decision changes vibration. It changes what you attract and what you allow. Some of you keep asking for a sign, but you don't need another sign. You need a stance. You've seen enough, cried enough, waited enough. Now it's time to decide. Decide to believe again. Decide to forgive. Decide to let go. Decide to try one more time. Decide that you are done being average when greatness is still in you. Because life doesn't start when you get what you want. It starts when you decide you're worthy of having it. And maybe you're scared. Maybe you've failed before. Maybe you don't know where to begin. But the power isn't in knowing every step, it's in taking the first one. Every great journey started with one decision to no longer stay where you were. Stop saying one day. Make this day that day. Because indecision will drain you more than failure ever could. Failure teaches you. Indecision traps you. You've got to decide who you are, what you believe, and what you refuse to tolerate. Because if you don't define your direction, life will define it for you. If you don't choose your standards, your surroundings will choose them for you. You can't live on autopilot and expect to arrive at destiny. You've got to be intentional. You've got to stand on your decision like it's unshakable ground. If you're watching this right now, I want you to stop scrolling for a moment. Look at your life. Really look. What's the one thing you've been putting off because fear told you to wait? What's the decision you know deep down you need to make, but you keep hoping someone else will make it for you? Belief is the birthplace of every breakthrough. Before you ever hold it in your hand, you've got to see it in your mind. You can't walk into something you don't first believe is possible. That's why belief is so powerful. It shapes your reality before reality even knows what's coming. Your life is the reflection of what your mind has accepted as truth. If you believe you're not enough, life will keep proving it to you. But if you believe you're chosen, called, capable, life starts to rearrange itself to match that conviction. See, belief is not just optimism. It's not pretending everything's fine. Belief is when you plant a seed in the middle of a desert and say, I know there's water somewhere beneath this ground. It's when you hold on to vision when sight betrays you. When you say, I might not see the way yet, but I know their asterisk is asterisk away. Belief is the foundation of faith, the language of persistence, and the heartbeat of destiny. You can't expect to live in abundance while believing in lack. You can't expect love to find you while believing you're unworthy of being loved. The problem isn't always your effort. It's your expectation. You can be working hard but believing small. You can be sowing every day but expecting nothing to grow. And that's where people get frustrated, not because life is against them, but because their belief never gave life permission to expand. You'll never rise higher than what you believe you deserve. Think about this. Every limitation in your life began as a thought you accepted. Someone told you you couldn't, and you agreed. Someone doubted you, and you internalized it. Someone left you, and you started believing you weren't worth staying for. And once belief took root, it started bearing fruit. Fruit of fear, fruit of hesitation, fruit of self-sabotage. That's why you have to protect your mind like it's sacred ground, because what you plant there will become your harvest. Belief is a seed, and your mind is the soil. If you sow fear, you'll reap regret. If you sow doubt, you'll reap delay. But if you sow belief, real belief, grounded belief, you'll reap resilience. You'll start to see opportunities where others only see obstacles. You'll find ways when others give up. Because belief opens your eyes to what was always there, you've got to stop talking yourself out of the very thing you've been praying for. Some of you believe more in your excuses than you do in your purpose. You've believed failure's voice longer than you've believed your own potential. You've got to unlearn the language of limitation. Stop saying, "It's too late, I'm too old, I'm too broken." No, you are exactly where you need to be to become everything you're meant to be. It starts with what you believe. When you believe something deeply, it changes how you move. You walk with a different rhythm. You speak with a different tone. You carry yourself with authority, not arrogance. Because belief breeds confidence, and confidence breeds consistency. You can't fake it. Real belief shows up in how you handle pressure, in how you face storms, in how you respond when nobody's cheering. There's a power that wakes up inside of you when belief becomes non-negotiable. When you stop asking for permission to dream, when you stop waiting for validation to move, when you stop apologizing for the fire in your spirit, you start to realize that the same energy it takes to doubt yourself could be used to believe in yourself. The same time you spend overthinking could be used to create something extraordinary. Every person who has ever done something significant in this world started with belief. They didn't start with money, connections, or clarity. They started with conviction. They saw something before anyone else did, and they refused to let go of it. That's the kind of belief you need, the kind that keeps you standing when the world sits down, the kind that keeps you speaking when the room goes silent, the kind that keeps you moving even when you don't see the result yet. You've got to believe that every step you take is building something, even if it doesn't look like it. You've got to believe that every delay has a purpose, that every no is redirecting you toward a better yes. Because belief doesn't need proof, it becomes proof. You've got to believe that what's inside of you is bigger than what's in front of you. You've got to believe that the pain you've endured wasn't wasted. It was training. You've got to believe that what you're carrying is worth fighting for. And belief is contagious. When you start believing again, everything connected to you begins to rise. Your family feels it. Your friends notice it. Doors start opening that used to stay closed, because belief creates movement. It shifts the atmosphere around you. It commands change. The moment you start believing differently, life starts responding differently. So if you're watching this right now, I want you to ask yourself, what do you really believe about you? Not what you post, not what you say when people are watching, but deep down when it's just you and your thoughts. Do you believe you can change? Do you believe you're worthy of the next level? Do you believe your best days are still ahead? Because nothing changes until your belief does. Transformation doesn't begin when everything around you changes. It begins when everything asterisk within asterisk you changes. Renewal starts in the mind. It's not about trying harder, it's about thinking higher. You can't step into a new season carrying the same mental patterns that kept you bound in the last one. Renewal isn't just adding new thoughts, it's replacing old lies with new truth. You can't pour new wine into an old mindset. It'll burst every time. That's why so many people feel stuck, not because they're not growing, but because they're trying to build a new life with outdated beliefs. You've got to unlearn before you can learn. You've got to let go of the thoughts that taught you to settle, the patterns that taught you to play small, the habits that whispered, "This is all you'll ever be." Renewal is about detoxing your mind from the residue of your past. The problem isn't that you can't move forward. It's that your mind still has old coordinates. It keeps leading you back to what's familiar. But just because something feels familiar doesn't mean it's right for your future. You can't let comfort disguise itself as peace. There's a difference between rest and resistance. Sometimes when your spirit is restless, it's not because you're ungrateful. It's because your mind is outgrowing its old shell. You can't keep forcing a renewed spirit to fit into an outdated mindset. Renewal demands release. It demands that you make space for what's next. You can't expect God, life, or destiny to pour into a mind that's already overflowing with junk from yesterday. And renewal doesn't happen overnight. It's a process. It's a daily discipline. Every morning you wake up with a choice. Will I think like the old me or the new me? Will I speak like the broken me or the healed me? Because every day your thoughts are shaping who you're becoming. You've got to be intentional about what you allow in. Protect your peace like it's sacred. Guard your focus like it's treasure. Because whatever gets your mind gets your life. You can't renew your mind scrolling through negativity and expect peace to find you. You can't renew your mind listening to voices that doubt your worth and expect confidence to grow. You've got to separate yourself from the noise. Renewal requires silence sometimes, space to hear your own soul again. You've got to unplug from the world long enough to reconnect with who you really are. Because renewal isn't about becoming someone new. It's about returning to who you were before the world told you who you had to be. We've been trained to believe that renewal is about performance, about proving we're better, doing more, showing the world our strength. But true renewal is quieter. It's internal. It's when your mind starts seeing challenges differently. When instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you start asking, "What is this teaching me?" That's the shift. That's the sign your mind is being renewed. Not when you escape problems, but when problems no longer define your perspective. And let me tell you something. Renewal hurts because it forces you to confront what's outdated inside of you. It shines light on the thoughts you didn't know were toxic. It exposes the lies you've lived by. It makes you realize how much you've tolerated that was never meant for you. But that pain is part of the process. Just like a muscle grows stronger by tearing and repairing, your mind grows wiser by confronting and renewing. Every tear is stretching you into a new dimension of thinking. The renewed mind doesn't see failure the same way. It doesn't say, "I lost." It says, "I learned." It doesn't say, "This setback means I'm done." It says, "This setback means I'm being redirected." When your mind is renewed, rejection becomes protection, pain becomes preparation, and waiting becomes training. You stop fighting what's shaping you, and you start cooperating with it. You begin to trust the process because your perspective has shifted. That's why renewal is power. It gives you control back. It lets you stand in the middle of chaos and still find calm. It lets you face uncertainty and still hold peace, because renewal doesn't change what happens around you. It changes what happens * inside * you. When your mind is renewed, storms can rage, people can doubt you, circumstances can shift, but you won't, because you've built your foundation on truth, not emotion. So many people want new blessings with old thinking. They want abundance but think like scarcity. They want purpose but speak like fear. Renewal forces you to align your thoughts with what you're asking for. You can't pray for new levels while clinging to old limits. Every next level of your life will demand a next level of your thinking. That's why you can't rush the process. You've got to let your mind evolve before your life does. Because if your mind isn't ready for the blessing will become a burden. When your mind is renewed, you stop reacting. You start responding. You stop being controlled by circumstances. You start controlling how you interpret them. You begin to see clearly, love deeply, and move intentionally. Renewal sharpens your focus until distractions no longer have authority over you. It doesn't mean you won't face chaos. It means chaos no longer dictates your peace. If you're watching this right now, take a moment to ask yourself, what old thoughts am I still carrying into a new season? What beliefs do I need to release so my mind can breathe again? There comes a moment when you realize that your life isn't being held back by what's happening around you, but by what's happening inside your head. You can't conquer what you don't confront, and you can't confront what you keep denying. The most powerful shift you'll ever make is not in your situation. It's in your perspective. See, too many people keep waiting for life to change before they change. But real transformation begins when you decide that no matter what's around you, it's not going to control what's within you. That's when strength is born. The hardest battle you'll ever fight isn't against other people. It's against the version of yourself that refuses to grow. That old version that's addicted to excuses, that's comfortable in pain, that finds safety in self-pity. That's the version you've got to challenge, because as long as you keep listening to that old voice, you'll keep living in the same old cycle. Change doesn't come from wishing. It comes from war you've got to fight for your future. You've got to be willing to silence the noise that keeps pulling you back into the comfort of what's familiar. It's not easy, because your old patterns will try to convince you that you can't make it. Your fears will whisper that you're not ready. Your doubts will tell you that it's too late. But you've got to speak louder than your limitations. You've got to tell your fear, you've had your turn, but I'm taking mine now. Every time you choose faith over fear, progress over paralysis, discipline over distraction, you're training your mind to follow your purpose, not your pain. Sometimes the biggest change you can make isn't external, it's internal. You can change your address, your job, your relationships. But if you don't change your mindset, you'll recreate the same problems in a new place. You can't outrun the version of you that hasn't been healed. You've got to face it. You've got to sit in those uncomfortable truths long enough to understand them, to learn from them, and to let them go. Because transformation doesn't come from pretending you're okay. It comes from admitting you're not and deciding to grow anyway. You've got to stop negotiating with the old you. Stop giving it power. The old you will say, stay safe. The renewed you will say, take the leap. The old you will say, you failed too many times. The renewed you will say, every failure taught me something I needed to learn. The old you will say, you don't have what it takes. The renewed you will say, I've got everything I need right here, right now. The difference isn't in what you have, it's in what you believe. And when you start believing differently, you start living differently. You've got to guard your focus like your life depends on it, because it does. Whatever captures your mind controls your momentum. That's why you can't spend your energy feeding negativity and expect your life to produce peace. You can't talk about growth but keep entertaining gossip. You can't ask for clarity while living in confusion. Your energy will always follow your attention, and your attention shapes your direction. If you want to see change, you've got to redirect your focus. And let me tell you something. You don't need the approval of others to change. Stop waiting for people to understand your transformation. Some won't get it because your growth challenges their comfort. They liked you better when you were broken because it made them feel whole. They liked you better when you were quiet because your silence made them comfortable. But you're not responsible for their comfort. You're responsible for your calling. You can't dim your light just because it exposes the shadows in someone else's life. When you start changing your mind, you'll start losing people who prefer the old version of you. And that's okay. Growth demands separation, not because you're better, but because you're becoming. Every elevation requires isolation. The caterpillar doesn't apologize for the cocoon, it embraces it. That isolation is where transformation happens. That's where your thoughts align, your vision clears, and your strength multiplies. The cocoon may look like a prison, but it's really preparation. You've got to trust that the version of you that's emerging is worth the discomfort. Because change is uncomfortable, growth is messy, renewal is lonely, but it's necessary. Every time you push through the urge to quit, you're rewriting your story. Every time you show up when you don't feel like it, you're retraining your mind to honor your purpose over your emotions. That's how change sticks, not when you feel motivated, but when you stay consistent even without motivation. And when that renewal starts taking root, you'll notice something powerful: peace. Not the kind of peace that depends on perfect circumstances, but the kind that exists in spite of them. You'll stop reacting to everything that used to shake you. You'll stop chasing validation. You'll stop explaining yourself to people who were never meant to understand your vision. Because once your mind changes, your energy changes. Once your energy changes, your circle changes. Once your circle changes, your life changes. If you're watching this right now, I want you to look at yourself and say, "I'm not who I used to be." Declare it with conviction. Type it in the comments if you have to. Speak it into your future, because once your mind is made up, nothing, no failure, no fear, no doubt, can hold you hostage. A changed mind is a freed mind, and a freed mind can transform everything it touches.